The most broken Genshin Impact character is coming back, and so I think this is a good time to make a updated guide for him. VENTI is a support character whose main focus is to provide various utilities. VENTI's elemental skill will do small AoE damage when you tap it, as well as launch the opponent into the air. It is a good CC ability, and you can use it to end your combo off to prolong the CC a bit longer. The whole version of the skill do more damage, lift you into the air, and allow you to do plunge attack. However, the cooldown is much longer, so you almost never use this. The main use case of this skill is to use it to avoid damage by lifting yourself up and being in a different elevation than the enemy attack. For example, against the Oceanid Water Explosion. VENTI's elemental burst suck up all the enemy into a giant ball and allow you to delete them all together. It also suck up all the artifact and loot around it for you to easily collect all of them once you have defeated the enemy. You can actually put an element into VENTI's elemental burst as well, which is infusion. After hitting it with a pyro attack from bennet here, you can see the tornado have been converted to red color, denoting that it have been infused with pyro element. Something to quickly call out is that VENTI's elemental burst does not convert the original enamel damage and instead do additional elemental damage. As you can see here, this line right here, the additional elemental damage. So it's not the same as just converting the original damage from enamel to a different element. You want to make sure to apply the element you want to infuse before casting VENTI Elemental's burst. Here you can see that because I want to inflict a Pyro Infusion Elemental's burst, I go ahead and affected an enemy with Hydro first. Also, because VENTI's Elemental Burst snapshot, make sure you cast all your buffs such as your bennet Elemental Burst before you cast the VENTI's Elemental Burst. Finally, you can actually animation cancels VENTI Elemental skill just right before the Elemental Burst. Here you can see the animation of me casting the Elemental skill and it have went on cooldown, and then right after I cancel out the animation by using my Elemental Burst. Final thing to call out is that usually you want to infuse a opposite element of your primary DPS. For example, here I infuse Hydro so that my Dilute can do Vaporize, or in this example I infuse Pyro so that my Ganyu can do Melt attack. A infused VENTI's Elemental Burst have the strongest elemental application in the game currently. So majority of the time, depending on the situation, you want to do the opposite element. VENTI's first passive just make the upcurrent created by your elemental skill last longer, but VENTI's second passive is really good. It refund 15 energy for VENTI after his elemental burst end, so this allows you to continuously chain elemental burst on VENTI. Additionally, it also gives 15 energy to whoever have the same element as the infused elemental burst. This also worked out in our favor because again, we want to infuse the opposite element usually, like Xingqiu or Xiangling. However, those have high energy requirement, so giving 15 energy to those characters who are not our main DPS actually worked out really well as well. For his talent leveling order, you can go for Elemental Burst first, followed by his Elemental skill. Now you can actually just leave his normal attack at level 1 because you don't really use normal attack on VENTI. Let's quickly go over VENTI's constellation. VENTI C1 is not really good because it only works for aim shot. What it does is it fires 2 additional arrows per aim shot in a cone. However, because you never use the aim shot, then this is not good at all. VENTI C2 is alright. It decreases the opponent enamel resistance by 12% as well as their physical resistance by 12%. Now the second part almost never apply because the airborne time is way too slow, so you don't really get the bonus here. But decreasing opponent enamel resistance by 12% is really decent. Basically just mean that you do more damage on VENTI against opponent who you have hit your elemental skill on. And if you have another enamel character in your party, for example Xiao, then you can do more damage on those characters as well. VENTI C3 is your standard free level constellation. VENTI C4 let him get 25% enamel damage bonus for 10 seconds after he picked up a orb or a particle. Now remember that his elemental burst snapshot, so you have to pick up the orb or particle before you cast your elemental burst. Now this means that your orb or particle should be generated by another character, and then you switch to Venti and pick up that orb. So depending on the situation, this might be hard to apply. But if you cast your skill in the right order, then you can get a 25% enamel damage bonus for free. So it's a really good constellation, but it's a bit tricky to work around with. Venti C5, standard 3 level talent. Venti C6 make target who took damage from his elemental burst have their enamel resistance down by 20%, as well as the corresponding elemental resistance down by 20% if you have a elemental burst infusion. 23 enamel resistance down is really good because again it increases your Venti damage by a lot. However, the elemental damage is not really that big of a deal because again usually you want to infuse opposite element. Moving on to weapon option, for 5-star Scour Hub is the best. A lot of you might be wondering about the new Venti Bow Lakey for the end. However, I think there's currently too many synergy problems with Venti, so I actually recommend against it. But if you have one, then you can put it on Venti as well. Moving on to the 4-star option, we have of course the Stringless. Now there's gonna be a new bow that is the Ali Hunter, and it turned out to be slightly better than Stringless, but more or less they're equivalent at the same refinement. So you can just put the one that you have higher refinement on Venti. Keep in mind that even at Refine 5, the Scour Harp still turned out to be better on Venti at Refine 1. So if you have Scour Harp, just use Scour Harp. Otherwise, the other bow are more or less the same. As for Artifact, I actually suggest using 2 Noblest and 2 VV for maximum damage on his elemental burst. Now a lot of you might be thinking, why not use 4 VV? The reason is because the foresight bonus is way too hard to apply, especially when you want to infuse the opposite element for your elemental burst, as we have described before. But the 4 VV set is not bad and can be used as well, of course, especially if you can get the 4-piece set bonus off reliably. For example, if you're playing a mono element team like Pure Pyro, then the 4-set VV will actually be really decent. Finally, if your party doesn't have a 4-set Noblest carrier, then feel free to put that on Venti, since Venti's primary function is to just cast his elemental burst. Moving on to Mainstat, you want attack percent on your Sands. You don't really need energy recharge because Venti get it on his Ascension, as well as his elemental burst refunding energy, meaning that you don't have energy problem at all. For his Goblet, you definitely want enamel damage, and for your circlet slot, either crit rate or crit damage is fine. And as for his substat, prioritize crit as always, and then followed by attack percent. A pretty common mistake people do is to go full elemental mastery on Venti because Venti hit for so many elemental reaction. However, I have an entire video on why you shouldn't do this, and so the conclusion is just don't do it. That's more or less for this video, a quick, nice, easy, short guide for Venti, who has actually been my favorite character since the beginning of the game. Not because he is broken, but because of his character design. You can actually see he's the only character I have at level 90, and you can see that he's the only character that I have crowned as well. I'm currently working my way toward level 10 talent, but I'm missing a lot of slime, so I'll have to get work on that. But anyway, that's it for this video. I hope to see you guys next time as well, so please like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you guys next time.